candidates and agents briefing. For those of you that don't know me, I can see lots of familiar faces sat in front of me. I'm Helen Briggs, I'm the Chief Executive at Rutland County Council, but for the purposes of this evening I'm the returning officer for the county, parish and the town elections. So the team are here tonight to help you. You've already been given lots of information. I hope you'll find this evening informative and there's an opportunity at the end for any questions that you may have. Just to draw your attention to the fact that there is a member of the public who is filming this evening. So just so that you're aware of that. Okay, so just to give you an idea of what we're going to go through this evening in terms of the subjects that we're going to cover. I'm going to explain who the team are. Alex is going to then cover everything, it will seem, which makes it look like obviously got some sort of mania going on.
So you get fed up with my voice.
But Alex is going to take us through the election timetable, what the qualifications for candidacy are, and indeed the disqualifications, what the nomination and the nomination process is, what your rights are in terms of access to the register of electors, some advice around campaigning, and then finally I think I get to wrap up the event with some information around contacts for you in terms of the process. And then we've got questions, and as I said, we've got the whole team here, including the experts at every stage of the process. So any questions you may have, you'll be able to answer. And if we can't, we will certainly provide you with an answer. Okay, so in terms of who's who, I'm the returning officer. The county, town and parish council elections are different to the parliamentary constituency. The parliamentary constituency returning officer is an officer of Melton Borough Council, because obviously we're a constituency that covers Melton, the small bit of Harborough and Rutland. So Melton are the administrative authority for the election for the parliamentary constituency. For which I'm a deputy returning officer, but I'm actually the returning officer for Rutland, and I have two deputy returning officers for our county, parish and town elections. Debbie Mogg, who's not able to be here this evening, and Diane Baker, who's sat there. And in terms of the electoral registration officer, Diane is also the electoral registration officer. So that's the person that is responsible for maintaining the electoral registers for the county of Rutland. Alex is the Deputy Electoral Registration Officer. Obviously we have risk plans in place for everything, and the reason we have deputies and deputies and deputies and deputies is just in case something happens to nominated officers. So we have a backup plan. The Electoral Services Officer is Sam Ramsey, who's sat there, and generally in terms of all of your day-to-day contact, day-to-day queries, the best point of first contact will be Sam Ramsey. Having said that, you can contact all of us right throughout the process, and if there are any queries and questions, Sam's probably the best place to start, but obviously if Sam's not able to help you, somebody else will, and you have access to all the officers, and the contact details are provided further on in the presentation. So,
okay, so the first sort of big event that's going to happen regarding dates is the publication of the notice of election. Now the latest that can happen is the 30th of March, but for Rutland and the parishes we're going to publish that on the 23rd of March. Okay, and from that point forward you can pick up your candidate packs and candidate nomination packs and all those pieces of paper you fill in and get back to us. And the next date I've highlighted there is the close of nominations. They're the two main things for getting registered as a candidate. When you can start and when you have to finish. Okay? I'm going to test you on those dates later. There's only two, so it might be quite easy. Alright. Other dates involved. So this is happening after you get nominated. We're obviously going to print a list of everyone who's been nominated as a candidate, and the other dates you can see on there as well. Okay. So, and again, some further dates. Polling day. Quite important after you've been nominated for election. Polling day is the 7th of May, and the polling stations open 7 AM to 10 PM. The count for the county and parish is actually taking place on Friday the 8th, so it's the day after the polling. The parliamentary election will be counted from Thursday the 7th into the very early hours of Friday morning, and then we are going to start ours at 2 PM on the 8th of May. Okay? Yeah, and the count is not going to happen here. The county is going to take place at Victoria Hall, still in Oakham, but down the road Victoria Hall, Town Council building, however you want to identify that. Okay. So qualifications and disqualifications. All right. So EU and Commonwealth eligible nations will be supplied on separate. Well, you can find them online, but you must satisfy criteria on the day you are nominated. So, and on polling day, you must be at least 18, British or qualifying Commonwealth citizen, or a member of the EU state. The qualification is an ongoing one that must be satisfied for the duration of the term of office should a candidate be successful. So you've got to consider this. And the employment, we'll move on to the next one, and other qualifications, at least one of these as well. Highlight the employment here doesn't have to be paid employment, it can be voluntary employment, voluntary work you do. And there we go. So disqualifications. So essentially qualifications, we'll go back to that. There are quite a few. Again, they're on the handouts. You need to be able to satisfy one of these to be able to stand. So essentially it's living, working, having a connection to the area you want to stand as a candidate. The disqualifications, I'll just flip over my paper as well. So there's some here and there's some more on the next slide, but these are some basic ones. For more detail, please go online onto the Electoral Commission website. The documents referred to in the guidance pack are all on there in their entirety. There are some others. You may also be disqualified from election if you've been disqualified from standing for election to a local authority following a decision from a first-tier tribunal. I think you'll be aware of these sort of things. They're quite important. I don't think you could have missed that if you have been to a first-tier tribunal. But the full range of disqualifications are in the guidance, but it's just to make you aware that there are quite a few. So again, things like the Audit Commission Act, if you've been disqualified, you should know about that as well. Or any other disqualification reason in the past. And also holding politically restricted posts. So for example, my role restricts me from standing. For more information on that, please give us a call on the Electoral Commission website. It will explain in more detail some of these qualifications and disqualifications. All right. So the nomination papers. When to submit them and how to submit them, what you submit. Okay. So, again, 4 p.m, 9th of April. So I mentioned that date once already. 2 nomination papers must be submitted by all candidates. So we've got a nomination form and a consent to nomination. All right. 4 p.m. is the latest that you can do it. Make sure your papers that you hand in are correct. We can change a couple of little tweaks on there, a couple of spelling mistakes, but essentially if they're not correct and they're found not to be correct, you can be disqualified and they won't be accepted. Okay? I put a shark on there because we don't bite, so please ask us. But we will snap your hand off if you hand them in early. Because if you hand them in early and we find there's something wrong with them, we will phone you up and tell you there is something wrong, and then you will have time to go away, correct it, and hand in the correct set of papers. If we have 50 people handing in nomination papers at 2 minutes to 4 p.m, we'll have to take them in, but then there's no time to correct anything because 4 p.m. deadline has passed. Okay, so bear that in mind when you're handing these in. It's sometimes difficult to get everything done by 4 p.m. on the 9th of April, but we're giving you the papers a week earlier than we need to try and build this in, so you've got a bit more time to do that. Now, the nomination forms must be delivered in person, and it's usually it should be the candidate bringing them in to us. It can be an agent, I'll come on to agents later, or somebody you trust, very important. And we can check them early, like I say, if we need to, if they're in early. If they're not in early and they're in the last minute, we're going to run out of time to check everybody's, and then there's no time for you to go make any corrections. Okay, certificates of authorisation. Let's move on to that. So for at the bottom there, party candidate. So if you're standing for a political party, 4 p.m. on 9th of April again is the deadline for a certificate authorising the use of the party name, or the description on the ballot paper for that party, and a written request to use one of the party's emblems. So we all know some of the popular emblems of political parties. All right. Now we must have those authorisation forms as well. So your nomination form, what goes on it? Okay, it can't just be, I want to nominate myself, please accept my form. This is my name for this ward or this parish. You must have subscribers or your followers. Now, this is where splits start happening with parish and county council seats. So, for parish elections, you just have to have 2 subscribers. So it's yourself and 2 subscribers. For county council seats, you need to sign off, and we need 10 subscribers. Okay. And the candidate must not sign the form if they are not qualified to stand. Goes without saying, we're an invalidate nomination. The register that applies to subscribers, so they must be valid people living here. It can't just be somebody who lives miles away, a distant cousin somewhere, I don't know. So the register that applies, so you need to be on the register because you need to put their name, the electoral registration number, to qualify them to put as a subscriber, is the one that is issued on the 1st of April. So the deadline for applications to be included on the register for the 1st of April is the 10th of March. So the subscribers must be registered in the ward or parish that you are submitting nomination papers for. So you don't necessarily have to live in that parish, you can live 4.8 kilometres away. You just have to live in Rutland, stand for Rutland ward, but your subscribers need to be local to the area. Okay. Consent to nomination. So although somebody nominates you, you have to accept that and consent to be nominated. So make sure you include the key details on there. And if you qualify, there was a list of qualifications earlier, so whether you live, whether you work. If you qualify under more than one of those qualifications, it's good practice to tick all that apply. Okay? Because if any of them become invalidated, you still can apply, you still qualify on one of the others. So if you work and live and then suddenly you move house, but you still work in the area, as long as a qualification, you still qualify, for example. Or more likely you may change jobs. Okay? Can anyone tell me when the consent to nomination form is due? Yeah, okay, 4 p.m. on the 9th of April, good stuff. Okay, testing, you are awake. And I'll give somebody a week to nudge someone if they fall asleep. So, certificate of authorisation, again. The certificate of authorisation, really for party candidates, this authorises a particular description or the party name to be used that then must be used by the candidate. If the certificate allows the candidate to choose, you must choose either the party name or a description registered with the Electoral Commission. No party names and descriptions are on the, party names and descriptions are on the Commission website, and they must match exactly. Okay, they've been registered, and they've been approved and accepted. If you put something different down, it's not correct. You can't accept it. Okay, and no alteration just because you like the sound of a different type of party. All right. The emblem request form. So we had previously it was about the name of the party or the description of the party. This is about the emblems. There's space, designated space on ballot papers. Put this on as well. So candidates who have a party description can have an emblem if the party has an emblem. You must ask for it themselves, and there's a form to request the emblem as well. And your agents will know about this. We'll come on to that in a minute. You should look at the Commission website because they're all registered on there somewhere. And use the description of the one you want. I've got an emblem here. It's supposed to be cherry blossom. Another question, can anyone tell me which country is represented by cherry blossom quite often? Japan, yeah, thank you very much. Okay. And word. Emblem request form must be submitted by 4 p.m. on 9th. Alright. There might be another one coming up, sorry, we'll get to it. Alright, joint candidates. Now somebody might say, joint candidates, so this is where you've been nominated by more than one party. Again, this only applies to party political things. So some of you may stand as independent, it's maybe fine. There are some registered joint descriptions, and they're listed on the Electoral Commission website. Joint candidates must have a certificate of authorisation from each of the parties who have registered the description. I haven't really seen one before, but apparently they do exist. And I've just put so if you stand for the bottles and tin can party, you'll need authorisation from the tin can party and the bottle party to stand on behalf of both of them, or the recycling party or the plastic bottles, something like that. It'll be interesting if we see it, actually. Okay, this is a new thing, so please pay attention to this one. Again, previously what people have done, they put their name forward for various different wards, and they can have a go and think, all right, and what's happened is, the deadline for nominations is, the deadline for withdrawing a candidate is 4 p.m. on 9th of April. It used to be a different date. So we publish all the people who have been nominated, and then you can choose which ones to withdraw from, if you don't like the look of the opponents. You can't do that anymore. And so if you put your name forward for more than one ward, more than one ward in the county or in the parish, by 4 p.m. on the 9th of April, you must withdraw from all but one. Otherwise, we will withdraw you from all of them. Okay? So it's just something to bear in mind. That's a change this year from previous elections. So you can't load up with, you could try and stand for 3 or 4. If you qualify for 3 or 4, you can only stand ultimately for 1. You can stand for more than one parish council, but not more than one ward in parish council. Okay. Right, election agents. I mentioned agents a couple of times already. So what do they do? Again, this is more party political, but agents, you need to register, essentially. And again, the date for registering agents is 4 p.m. on the 9th of April. Just to test you, what date does the notice of election get published? 23rd of March. Great stuff. Not 4 p.m. on the 9th of April. 23rd of March. We'll finish before 4 p.m. So, but agents, although you have to register them, agents, including a candidate, you can act as your own agent. If you don't put an agent forward, we'll assume you are the agent. So all the information will go to you, we'll assume all the information will come back. No secret agents, please. I know James Bond's coming out later in the year, but you must be notified of who the agents are. If you turn up at an event saying, I'm an accounting agent, I want to turn up at accounts, the name's not down, you're not coming in. Okay. Same with postal votes. There are various different agents for various different things, and here are the other agents sitting in their back seats. Okay, so they can be appointed to attend various things: polling vote, postal vote opening, polling stations, the count, things like that. But there's a different date. There we go. I won't ask you to remember that one. It only comes up once. The returning officer, Helen Briggs, requires notice of writing of any people appointed as polling and counting agents by the 29th of April. And again, it's on the list of dates that you've got there. So just bear that in mind. Some of you may not have an agent. It may be a partner, husband, wife, whatever. But it's to help you on with the election. The party, more based on party political. Okay. Generally, there are no agents for parish and community council elections. But people try not to pay too much attention to the register of electors. And then election starts coming up. And government starts getting interested. So then our workload picks up. Okay. So, once you officially become a candidate, you're entitled to receive a free copy of the full electoral register and the list of people voting by post or proxy, which is called the absent voter list, for the ward or division they are contesting. So if you're contesting, Exton Ward, you can't have a copy of the register of electors for a different ward. Or if you're contesting one parish, you can't have it for another parish. It's got to be where you're standing. So, although we're publishing on the 23rd, the official date for becoming a candidate, and having your copy of the register, will be 30th of March, which is the latest date you can publish. Some of the wording used gets a bit but so 30th of March when you officially become a candidate. It doesn't mean you hand your papers in, but you can nominate yourself as a candidate. I'm going to be a candidate. It's 30th of March. I want a copy of the electoral register. There will be a form to fill in that you have to sign. Written request to the electoral registration officer, which is Diane, and the forms, if you get a nomination pack, the forms will be in there. Okay. So, registered political parties probably already have one. Right. You can only use it for certain purposes, and any person found breaching restrictions on the use of the electoral register could face a fine of up to £5,000. Right. There's more details on this in Part 4 of the Commission's guidance. I think we've got a little guidance pack there that refers to Part 4. And all the documents in the guidance packs that you've got can be found online. They are quite lengthy, so we haven't printed off 30 odd copies of them because there'll be a lot of paper. Okay, but they're all online and they're quite easy to find on the Electoral Commission website. Okay. So essentially it's for these three things. Completing a nomination form, you need to write in the subscribers and you need their electoral register number. You won't know that unless you've got a copy of the register. Okay. Helping your campaign so you can see who lives in your ward, because you don't want to get to the end of your ward, especially in an urban area, step across the road and keep campaigning down the street, which is not in your ward. It does happen. So, it moves us on to campaigning. Are there any questions so far on any of that? So we'll wait for the end. We can save them all up and do a quick fire.
I've got one question regarding the bear with me a minute. The subscribers.
Yeah.
You didn't mention, I don't think, anything about whether I can ask family to subscribe. Is that possible?
They need to be in the ward,
Yeah.
standing in. If they're on the register of electors.
Okay.
I was about to come on to something else on that one. Yeah, Rob?
Related question, does it matter if your witness on the consent to nomination form is also one of your subscribers?
No,
They need to accept?
they don't need to live in your ward either. The subscriber
Okay.
can be. So it's got to be somebody who signs off. I've seen this person sign the form. The subscribers, again, we encourage you to get nomination forms in early as you can, because, Sam, tell me if I'm right here, you can't subscribe to 20 different people, for example. And the computer system we've got will tell you this subscribe doesn't count because they've already subscribed to somebody else. Okay? So that's also one of the reasons why if you get them in early, then we'll say go away and find somebody else. Well, not go away, we won't tell you to go away. Yeah, take the form away again. And if we've got enough time to do that, we give you a phone call, please come in. It may be 2 or 3 of your subscribers. And sometimes when people knock on the door and they say, can you subscribe for me for the election? Have you already done it for anybody else? Oh no, I don't think so. Just for once, because the day before they did for the name or something like that. So just make sure if we get you can check that out. The computer system will tell us as well.
Does early posting of subscribers mean that they're yours and not someone else's?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. First come, first served, subscribers.
Run all you can.
Did you say the electoral roll number has to be on the subscriber's form?
I think the subscribers form has the electoral number as well.
It does, yeah.
We've got some samples there. We didn't make lots and lots of copies.
So how did you get that?
How do you get it?
That's
Register of
what you
electors.
registered for.
Register of electors, you can get that. You can see who's in your ward, so you'll get the register for your ward and tell them. And like I say, sometimes, mainly for the towns, your ward will run out, and it could just be a postcode change across the road or halfway down the street or something, depending on where the boundary is. So you can certainly check that.
So we would have to write to you to get the electoral register that has each person and their number. And as I only need to do it by going to a parish council, if I get 2 subscribers, that's the only information I might need off the electoral register. I can't get that information from you without sending me the electoral register.
The electoral register is, I don't necessarily, well, I'll advertise it, but it is open to public inspection. So please don't necessarily do this tomorrow, but you could come in tomorrow and say, can I please see? You can't just say, I want to look through the whole thing. We have to sit there with you. You can get your own copy once you're officially a candidate, but yeah, just phone up. You can phone up.
Yeah.
You can't just say, oh, can you
Just
tell me
want
where?
to get the whole thing if all you want is to...
Yeah, if you need a couple, you can,
Yeah.
So somebody there, phone up and ask, these people are in my ward.
Documentation, how many copies
Yeah.
will need and things like that.
So I can phone.
Phone up, fine, great.
But that implies then that you can't get the nomination forms in before sometime after the 30th, because you won't have access to the electoral register.
If
Yeah.
you ring up for the numbers, you can. You
Oh, right.
submit your forms in that first week,
Right.
we will check them, but we can't confirm you until after the 30th, which is the latest date for the notice to be published. Or you can get the numbers before then.
Do electoral registers change between one election and another? Because I've still got the register for the last election.
People move in and out.
True, but
People
will the
move
people who
away.
are still there have the same number?
No, the number changes every year.
Right.
Yeah.
But if I've registered to vote, is my electoral number on my registration to vote? I
It
get...
depends when you got your confirmation letter. If you got your confirmation letter last July, it would have changed.
Right, so a subscriber wouldn't have
Yeah,
that on...
the register is republished on the 1st of December,
It's
which
the
renumbered each time.
safest thing to do in all instances, because let's be right about this, is your responsibility to prospective candidates to make sure that the information that is on your nomination forms is accurate, is to use the most current electoral register and to check the information yourself. As Alex has said, if you submit it on the last day at 4 o'clock, then we have no time to check it, and if it's wrong, you will be rejected as a candidate. So it's your responsibility to make sure that that information is absolutely accurate. Okay? And we have absolutely no tolerance on that. It's not a case of I have any discretion at all as returning officer. If it's wrong, it's rejected.
Okay? And like I say, 4 p.m, 4:01, I'm going to go by the time on my computer, is no good. Okay? Because 4:02 is no good. It's got to be, it's 4 p.m, and then we're accepting nothing. So it makes sense to get it in even 5 minutes early just to make sure it's in. I prefer it 5 days early. But we're giving you an extra week to pick up the packs, start filling them out, and trying to plot out who you're going to put down as a subscriber. And some councils will only publish their notice of election on the 30th of March. And so we're trying to spread that workload out a little bit.
Alex, assuming that not everybody is mega efficient and gets it in a week or so early,
It's very busy lifestyles, yes.
and it's coming down to the last day,
Yes.
are you going to be accessible in a physical sense? Because your office seems miles up there
Well,
and people
yes.
coming down here.
It's very easy for us, and I'm sure it's very easy for us to go and sit in the reception area there. We have Wi-Fi.
We will be doing appointments as well,
Yeah.
to just do an initial check to make sure everything's there before we check elections as well.
We're doing our absolute best to make ourselves as accessible as possible. But the way to beat the rush is to get it in early. And you know, even though we will put extra resources into this in the couple of days before actually close nominations, clearly, if everybody leaves it until the last minute, some people will have to wait. Because that's the position that we're in.
But if we come along to reception and ask for you, then basically you just sit and wait until come on.
And one of the things that we're exploring is actually, as Alex said, is putting up effectively a triage facility in the council customer service area, so that for the day or the 2 days before, there will be an elections team representative down there who will be able to help with queries. But what you've got to remember is we've also got to be answering the phone to all the people that are running up with queries. So we'll be doing our best to do that. And we, as Alex has emphasised a number of times, some forward planning on your part will greatly help you in certain parts of this as well.
Okay. So it moves us on to campaigning. So if you, well, I suppose we're skipping ahead. Put your nomination forms in on time and they're all correct. You may choose to do some campaigning. Do's and don'ts. It's green on green. Do's and don'ts and some spending tips. Right, campaigning. Do. So, use imprints on all your campaign material. What is an imprint, I hear you ask? So, on printed material that you're going to hand out, put through letterboxes maybe, you don't have to. An imprint, such as leaflets and posters, you must include your name, the address of the printer and the promoter where it's printed and who it's printed on behalf of. There's a wealth of information online and it states that. And on the Electoral Commission website, it will probably give you an example. Okay? You can't just randomly hand out papers saying, vote for John, vote for Jane, or who, we don't know who's printed that. Okay? So, again, in the Electoral Commission website, part 4 goes through all of that. And if you want to put up a big billboard, obviously there are going to be planning issues with that, so you need to ask the council. You can't just go plastering over lampposts and traffic lights and stuff like this. I wouldn't advise that anyway. So comply with, again, planning rules. Outdoor posters after the election, 2 weeks after, you've got to get rid of them as well. We've all seen, the billboards hammered into the verges. Got to get rid of them. I'll advocate doing it. That's best. But anyway, don't produce material that looks like a poll card. And this is not just me saying it because I don't like the look of them. We're not allowed to. And don't pay people to display your adverts unless they display adverts as part of the normal business. Okay? There is a code of conduct for campaigners, and it's on the Electoral Commission's website, and that's been developed with all the political parties, all the people involved in politics, and it's been agreed. So these rules have been through various iterations and they've come up with a final version. So again, this is not Rutland County Council saying we don't want you to do this stuff. This is an election event. It's the returning officer, so there's the distinction between returning officer, chief executive. Returning officer is elections, and these are the election rules that we need to be followed. Okay. Yeah. No, sorry.
How far ahead of the election can you display quotes or that kind of thing?
Until we tell you there's an election, there is no election.
Right.
So this is where the notice of election comes into play.
Oh, okay.
And really, if you say, I'm a candidate for the election in May, You could choose to do it now, or there isn't an election. You know there's an election. Until we tell you there's an election, the notice of election. I mean, you can go around and, can't you? Some people may think they've started campaigning now, but until we put a notice up saying there is an election, there isn't an election. So really, 23rd, I'm a candidate, you declare yourself a candidate, and then there we go. That's what I'd say. All right, where were we? Candidate spending, yes. So this is defined as certain expenses. So where I'm saying printed material, that might cost you however much. I don't know how big the award is. You might not do any campaigning. You may not need any candidate spending. But it's used for the purposes of candidate selection after you officially become a candidate. So, normally the election agent, if you have an election agent, is responsible in law for the return of these. There is a limit. You can't just go and spend whatever you like. The limit is changed in August, actually, so it's quite up to date. £740 plus 6p per elector in the ward or division on the register in force on the 30th of March. Can anyone remember what else is the 30th of March?
Nomination.
Yeah, it was almost.
The agent.
Notice of election.
It was the last date we can publish the notice of election, but we're giving you an extra week. Okay, so that's why that corresponds to that. Joint candidates is different. I haven't put, there's a bit of what on earth is a joint candidate? I haven't put that down. Again, in all the literature, it tells you where to find the information, and it might try and explain what a joint candidate is, and it may not help. But they may have joint candidates, but they have a different spending allowance. Okay. No money spent on your campaign can be reclaimed from the council or the electoral commission. Okay, and the rules in there state how it can be spent. Now, there is a deadline for putting your. You've got to keep your receipts actually. £10 for parish elections. Anything spent over £10, keep your receipts. Anything spent over £20 for county councillors, you need to keep your receipts. And there is a deadline for submitting your expenses returns. 35 days after the election for county, 28 for parishes. These are calendar days. These are not working days, which gives you many more. Okay. Failure to submit an expenses return is a criminal offence.
Does that imply even if you have no expenses, do you have to put in an
It
expense
should do.
claim that says no
Yeah,
expenses?
it should say nil.
Put in this nil
Yeah.
return.
Yeah, the opposite. That's right. Oh, turn them on. So contacts and reminders, is that? I'll carry on, well, thank you. The thing, I always find if you do something well, people ask you to do it again. So, okay, contacts and reminders. And this is where I'll quiz you again on some of the dates. All right. So, contacts, we've gone through who's who sitting here at the table. The elections office, here's a phone number. If you didn't get a copy of the presentation slides, I think we're going to put them on the website. If you can't get, if you don't use computers, don't have a website, please let us know and we can get one out to you. It just gives you the number of the election office. It goes to the sound desk, so please feel free to ring. 01572 721 it's a Rutland number. And we have a generic email address which is pretty easy to remember, elections@rutland.gov.uk. Right? Electoral Commission, some people have asked, where can I find the paperwork for the guidance that you've got? So on the Electoral Commission website, there's a Midlands number if you have anything to report or any concerns. It's 0300, I think that's like the new sort of low-cost national phone line.
I did a link to the Electoral Commission on our webpage.
What's the link to that?
All right, and there's a link to this on our webpage. This will all go onto our website. And also on our website, we've got a dedicated page and we will update that as soon as anything else comes in. So from tonight, I'll put this on there as well. And there's a link from the front page of our website there. Any of the dates that are coming up, we'll put them in as well. We're intending on running, once the candidacy has gone past, we're intending on running candidates and agents briefing for what is going to happen for the count on the day of that. Do's and don'ts for polling day. And things like that. So that'll come up later, so we'll advertise that on the website and things. Reminders. Here we go. Publication of the notice of election. Shout out, please. 23rd of March. Hey. Deadline for nomination papers. 4 p.m. 9th of April. Polling day. Counting day. Brilliant. Okay.
We'll just stress that in terms of the count day, I notice on there we're not starting counting until 2 o'clock. That's for a very obvious reason that some of us are working very late into the holiday morning, so we need to refresh and start again.
We envisaged a count at Melton. We don't know what time we finish, 4 or 5 in the morning.
Finish at 5
So we don't want to start our count at 9 a.m. the following day.
You may have mentioned this, but nomination papers, do we have to come to the council offices to pick them up? Or can we download them online and print them off at home?
No, you don't have to pick them up in person.
We can send them out or
we can send them out to you if you really want to print them off with your own paper and things. Otherwise, we'll get them sent out. You can pick them up as well. Somebody else can pick them up. Some people pick up 2 or 3 because they need 2 or 3 people sending.
Probably going to provide sets to the parishes.
Yeah, we're thinking of giving a few sets to each parish clerk, so we haven't told them that yet. But
yes, I've already spoke to the clerk in Uppingham, and she said that they were obtained from here.
So it's really getting them back. Somebody has to get them back to us. We don't put them in post. I think it's just the risk of them not arriving. I posted them a week ago. I should be a candidate. Well, we never got them.
And if you're out of the country on the 8th, how will you find out whether you've been elected?
There'll be a big... yeah, of course.
We've finalised the communication strategy, but clearly the website will be updated as it happens. We will be using social media to update, so as results are announced, we will be tweeting. But what we will not do is contact individual candidates to tell them what the outcome is. So you can use the phone a friend option, or you can go on our website, or social media throughout the day. The following Monday, of course, if you ring the elections office, then we'll be able to give you results on the internet or whatever.
And if you're not successful, but the council hasn't got the required number of members, there's a co-opting process, I understand, and how does that work?
That's the jurisdiction of the town and parish council.
Okay, so that would be something you'd have to talk to them about.
If there are 5 seats on the parish council and you only get 4 candidates, you don't need to have a pot. You're all elected, as long as you qualify. But if there is that missing seat, as long as the parish council can carry out, when I say parish, town council, parish council, it's the same regulation. As long as the parish council is quorate, which means they have enough members to make decisions and carry out their business, then that is parish council to arrange for a seat if there was not. If there aren't, if we need 4 candidates, we only get 3. That's a different situation, but I won't go into that because it's a bit complicated. Okay, so they're the reminders, and well done. You got them right. Resources, useful resources for you. We've given you a few. The timetable we've got is on the website, and Sam printed out a few more. If you didn't pick one up at the beginning, if you were one of the later ones to come in, they're over on the website, on the table over there. But the Electoral Commission website has a wealth of information, and it goes into some detail, and it will tell you bits of legislation and things like that. Our website, rutland.gov.uk. We've given you a little handout guide. And for standing standing as a candidate in the first instance, parts 1 and 2 from the Electoral Commission website are the relevant ones, or 2A and 2B, depending on if you're an independent candidate or party candidate. We've got some sample nomination packs. The parish ones are different. The forms. I mean, parish forms look very, very similar. You can have a look. We didn't print off for 30 copies of this. Lots of boxes to fill in. Names and numbers. We've only got 5 or 6. You can take one if you like. Another form, because I went through lots of different forms, boxes to fill in, some guidance, and just make sure you fill it in. And if you need some guidance on how to fill this in, just give us a call. Like I said, we're not going to buy it. So just give us a call. And the main difference, parish and county forms are the subscribers. And a slight difference on the qualification, because parish council you can live 4.8 kilometres away from the boundary of the parish. Okay. That's the main difference. Yeah, it's because of Europe, I think.
No, I speak English.
Yeah. We have to use kilometres in the guidelines. Okay, and the timetable handout as well. Timetable's on the website. Again, the dates, the only date we had any leeway really is that publication of notice of elections, so we've gone a week earlier. Questions we've had throughout? Are there any?
Found it useful. The key advice, I think, I'm not going to emphasise the dates again. I think you've all passed that test a number of times over now. But the key thing I would say is that if you've got any questions or you're a bit stuck, the team are here to help. And our job is to make, if you decide to put yourself forward, our job is to try and make it as straightforward and as easy as it possibly can be for you. So don't scratch your heads, give us a call, and we will do our absolute best to try and help you. Okay. Thank you very much. That's it. We'll be around for a few minutes if anybody's got any questions. If you want to ask one, or if there's any paperwork you want to go around.